Human soul, thou livest in the limbs which bear thee through the world of space into the spirit's ocean being. Practice spirit recollection in depths of soul, wherein the wielding will of world creating, thine own I comes to being in God's eye, and thou wilt truly live in human world being. For the Father Spirit of the heights holds sway in depths of worlds, begetting being. Seraphim, Cherubim, thrones, let there ring out from the heights what in the depths is echoed. This speaks, ex Deo nascimur. The spirits of the elements hear it, in east, west, north, south, may human beings hear it. Human soul, thou livest in the beat of heart and lungs, which leads thee through the rhythm of time into the realm of thine own soul's feeling. Practice spirit awareness in balance of the soul, where the surging deeds of the world's becoming, thine own I, unite with the world I, and thou wilt truly feel in human soul weaving. For the Christ will in the encircling round holds sway in rhythm of worlds, bestowing grace on the soul. Curiosities, dynamis, exousiae, let there be fired from the east what in the west is formed. This speaks, in Christo morimur. The spirits of the elements hear it, in east, west, north, south, may human beings hear it. Human soul, thou livest in the resting head, which from the grounds of eternity opens to thee the world thoughts. Practice spirit beholding in stillness of thought, where the eternal aims of God's world being's light on thine own eye bestow for thy free willing, and thou wilt truly think in human spirit foundations. For the world thoughts of the spirit hold sway in beings of worlds beseeching light. Archai, archangeloi, angeloi, let there be prayed from the depths what in the heights will be granted. This speaks, per spiritum sanctum reviscimus. The spirits of the elements hear it, in east, west, north, south, may human beings hear it. At the turning point of time, the spirit light of the world entered the stream of earthly being. Darkness of night had held its sway. Day radiant light streamed into human souls. Light that gives warmth to simple shepherds' hearts. Light that enlightens the wise heads of kings. O light divine, O Son of Christ, warm thou our hearts, enlighten thou our heads, that good may become what from our hearts we found, and from our heads direct with single purpose. Rudolf Steiner, The Foundation Stone Meditation. When now, at this moment, we unite these three forces, the forces of the heights, the forces of the circumference, the forces of the depths, in a substance that gives form, then in the understanding of our soul we can bring face to face the universal dodecahedron with the human dodecahedron. Out of these three forces, out of the spirit of the heights, out of the force of Christ in the circumference, out of the working of the Father, the creative activity of the Father that streams out of the depths, let us at this moment give form in our souls to the dodecahedral foundation stone, which we lower into the soil of our souls, so that it may remain there a powerful sign in the strong foundations of our soul existence. This meditation was given by Rudolf Steiner at the Christmas Foundation meeting in 1923 as a spiritual foundation stone to the members of the Worldwide Anthroposophical Society, newly founded at that time. The author has, for the past 11 years, not only regarded it as the foundation stone of all anthroposophical study, but has endeavoured to make it the foundation of all his written or spoken work. In whatever task he has had to perform, he has taken the foundation stone as his guide. It has proved an invaluable help, and the following work is intended as an expression of gratitude for that help, an expression of gratitude to Rudolf Steiner. Valentin, Tomberg, Tallinn, Estonia, November 1936. Past, present, and future as gateways to the spiritual world. The human consciousness of the present day knows itself to be immersed in the stream of time. It is not conscious of the time stream as such, however, but only that stream is flowing through it. The time stream itself in its completeness does not appear to our consciousness. It springs from an unknown nothingness and vanishes into another nothingness. The darkness from which it springs is called the future. The darkness into which it disappears is called the past. The fact of being flowed through, experienced by human consciousness, is bound up with our notion of the present. This, fundamentally, is how time is experienced in the present phase of consciousness. However, if we are to take into account not only the bright light under the strong colouring, but also the feeble shimmering light and the pale tints, then what has just been said must be to some extent modified. For in the darkness of the future a dim light of future possibilities does indeed shimmer, and the searchlight of remembrance throws the fading colours of memory over part of the darkness of the past. Thus the transition from nothingness into visible appearance, and out of visible appearance into nothingness, is in reality not so abrupt. The future gleams dimly as possibility and probability, and the past flows on a little farther in memory before, gradually fading, it completely disappears. Yet even if the boundaries are not so clear-cut and the transitions are softened, nevertheless in the stream of time our human consciousness has a fragmentary character. And this is something felt by consciousness itself to be unsatisfying. We must admit our limitations, but we cannot approve them. Indeed, It is inherent in the nature of human consciousness to strive to overcome these limitations. The very existence of religion and philosophy is enough to show that consciousness cannot reconcile itself to a permanent position between two darknesses. Even the carpe diem of the Epicureans and the preaching of Ecclesiastes point to this. For if the human consciousness were normally satisfied with its position, there would be no occasion to exhort it to contentment or preach a cheerful acceptance of what is given. Now there is deep cause for the dissatisfaction of the human soul with its situation within the time stream. The reason why the human soul, thus faced with this fragmentary experience of time, feels constrained to say that this indeed is so, but that it ought not to be so, must be sought in the fact that the cleavage of time is a symptom of illness in human consciousness. For this cleavage of time is a consequence of the fall. It was Lucifer who divided the unbroken circle of the time stream into past and future, and this resulted in the fleeting moment and in its consequences, error, but also freedom. Since then, the human being's active life has been forever in the fleeting moment, only divining the future, only remembering the past. Yet since then there has also lived in the human soul a striving to transcend the boundary set by memory in the past, and thereby overcome the darkness of forgetting, to transform the vague foreboding of the future into certainty of vision, and to reach beyond the fleeting glory of the moment to the true being of the ever-present. Wrestling with the dark forgetfulness of the past, awakening in the present through spirit awareness, and beholding the future, herein consists the unremitting activity of human consciousness. And insofar as a soul is able to overstep these limitations, to that extent may we speak of the greatness of a human soul. What we admire in the character of genius is the power to pierce through the semblance of the moment, to point out paths into the future, and to reawaken the past. The growth of a soul consists in the widening of these boundaries of consciousness, and homage given to any great soul is proof that the souls of all men and women yearn after growth. For this reason, the foundation stone, which has for its content the general growth of the human soul, is addressed to the soul of every human being. The phrase opening each verse of the meditation and characterizing its theme is human soul. The foundation stone consists of thoughts concerning the ways and means of growth in the human soul, and the ways and means of help afforded to it by the spiritual world. Thus, the first part of each of the 3 verses contains the instruction most essential to the human soul in order that it regain the past, find light in the future, and have its share in fundamental being even in the fleeting glory of the present. The practice of spirit recollection, spirit awareness, and spirit beholding form the content of the first half of each of the 3 verses. They contain that which the human soul must of necessity do from within in order to advance in the right direction. The first of these 3 practices or exercises is concerned with an inward effort to alter the direction of the force of memory. For the direction in which memory commonly runs is horizontal. If we want to remember the past, we generally start from the present and think farther and farther back until we reach the point we are seeking. This is the method of consciousness in the usual process of memory. And it is characteristic of this process that memory loses its strength when it has to go far into the past. The call to practice spirit recollection is not concerned, however, with lengthening the horizontal line of recollection, but with a change of direction in the force of memory. The first step in meditation must indeed be the exclusion of all ordinary remembering. The activity of ordinary remembering must be brought to a standstill. This is the very first thing to be done. The horizontal line of memory must be contracted to a point, and all that is needed is that we recollect our own existence. When this stage of concentration is reached, and the forces of consciousness are mustered, the next step is to give to the forces of memory a vertical direction. This means that we must no longer be remembering this, that, or the other, but must make our own higher nature, our own true being, the object of our recollection. The light stream of consciousness is now directed on the highest and deepest principles of our own humanity. Then it may happen that the essential characteristics of a new nature gradually dawn on the consciousness of those practicing this exercise, who cannot help recognizing this nature as their own, though it is utterly different from all that their ordinary experience has shown them of themselves. For if hitherto the conception of our physical form and the idiosyncrasies of our soul life have set us apart from the cosmic whole, distinguishing us from other beings within it, we now experience an active though tranquil nature, which instead of severing us from the cosmic whole, unites us with it. It is a cosmic nature which, penetrating deeply and forcefully into our body, participates in the formation of that body, and by penetrating into the bodily limbs, unites them with cosmic morality. The limb system, which in the body merely consists of the members that carry the human soul through the world of space, becomes in this higher nature a cosmic will current, uniting the human soul with the surrounding spirit sea, the spirit's ocean being. The physical legs on which we are supported and by means of which we stand clear of the solid earth's surface correspond to the will currents that unite us with the earth and with its destiny. The arms with which we hold and let loose are, in the true nature of our human being, currents of a will for universal union, for the all-embracing harmony of the wide cosmic horizons. Even the head, which itself possesses some characteristics of a limb, becomes in this nature the upward flowing current of devotion to the divine will. The deep content of these will currents, which flow through the height, depth, and breadth of the universe, uniting the human being with the cosmos in every direction, is expressed with wonderful significance in the first three petitions of the Lord's Prayer. For the will streams of this being are in fact not desires but petitions, addressed to the divine being on whom the world is founded. This upward stream can be expressed in the words, "Hallowed be thy name." The outward flowing current of the will to universal union may be characterized by the words, "Thy kingdom come." And the downward current can find expression in the words, "Thy will be done on earth as it is done in heaven." This experience of spirit recollection produces a change in the whole life feeling of the human soul. It gives rise to a sense of being firmly planted within the current of the cosmic willpower's moral sway. We learn, for instance, to say the words "I am" with new meaning. Instead of saying "I am" in such a way that the utterance carries with it a contrast to an unexpressed "not I," it now becomes possible to say the "I am" so that a world behind and above the I may be divined. Then the I Am springs forth like a tongue of fire from the ocean of cosmic flame, for it is then no longer spoken horizontally as a separate point upon an alien surface, but vertically, the coming into being of the I within the I of God. The coming into being of our own I within the divine I is the experience to which spirit recollection, spiritual memory can lead. Through this experience, the human soul learns to know the nature of the past. By finding entrance to eternity in the past through spirit recollection, the soul perceives the density of the past. The soul now recognizes that the past does not vanish into nothingness. It only loses its time character and becomes space. Even the Akashic record is supersensible space. It is all present at one and the same time. But physical space also comes into existence when the past becomes space. Expressions of the will of beings, deeds at one time or another in the fluctuation of creative happenings, become the content of the Akashic record. But there are other streams of will whose aim is immobility and constancy of state. These become physical space, bodily form. Just as there are living thoughts that keep on broken pace with creative metamorphoses, and on the other hand immobile dogmatic thoughts rigidified into formulas, so also are there creative deeds, phases of an activity in constant metamorphosis, and also deeds whose impulse is to remain final and unaltered. An immobile and rigidified will produces physical matter and material bodies. Physical bodies are dogmas of will, even as dogmas are mineralized thoughts. The stone is hard, not only because of intermolecular attraction is strong in it, but because a constant and rigid will binds it together. Moreover, the members of the human space body are rigidified will currents of this kind. They are the past, of which the soul, a being of the present, makes use on its way to the future, which is the spirit. For if all the past, even the supersensible past, becomes body, all the future is spirit, then it is only in the present that we actually have to do with the soul. The time stream we began by describing in the way the soul experiences its day is in reality not a horizontal current flowing from the future through the present to the past, but is the process in which the soul participates of spirit becoming body. The time stream is, in its reality, the descent of spirit into body. Spirit future, soul present, body past. We obtain in this way an idea more consistent with the reality of what we commonly call the flow of time, and we can also better understand why the future appears to us as dark. It appears dark because it is the spiritual world. Thus, for example, the seer who wrote the Apocalypse saw in the elemental world what he told us concerning the 7 letters, whereas he found in the astral world what he wrote in connection with the 7 seals. While the events he described as the sounding of 7 trumpets belonged to the Devashanic world, and the description of the 7 vials of wrath is derived from a still more exalted spiritual world. Now the 7 letters refer to the 7 cultural epochs of the post-Atlantean civilization, that is, of the 5th Great Period, while the 7 seals refer to the 6th, and the 7 trumpets to the 7th Great Period. The vials of wrath correspond to a still more distant future, namely, the end of the Earth evolution, and the transition to the Jupiter period. This example given by St. John the Evangelist shows us what the future really is, that is, the descent of the spiritual world to Earth. This idea of time also shows us why the past appears dark to ordinary consciousness. It is because it becomes space. Space can be penetrated by the light of consciousness only when we recollect the spiritual process that gives rise to it. The human eye, which comes to being in God's eye, is also a part of space, but it is the one tract of space within the physical world, the world of things that have come into being, that is itself forever still in process of becoming, coming into being, deriving being from the eye of God. The eye is both a form and also the unceasingly creative forming of this form. It is will, self-determining not once and for all but ever and again. The existence of the eye is no mere given fact, but spiritual activity, ever enduring and creative. Moreover, it is creative activity, both of the eye itself and also of the divine foundation, God's eye, within which the eye comes to being. It is important to understand that the eye does not merely exist or be, but is forever coming into being. The German word Urverset, comes to being, expresses a concept by means of which we can understand most deeply the nature of the human eye. Yet in the practice of spirit recollection, it is not enough to understand the nature of the human eye. It must become vital experience. And this experience throws light upon the origin of space itself. Whatever is spatial originates in the same way as the human eye. But the spatial remains as it is once it has originated, whereas the eye continues to originate. This is because the eye belongs not only to the past, but also to the present. It is not only a past, but a past that is forever becoming, and this becoming is the spiritual reality of the present. Now, in order to grasp the spiritual reality of the present, the human soul must practice the exercise contained in the first half of the second verse of the foundation stone. It is the practice of spirit awareness that enables the soul to become conscious of the living reality of the present. If the practice of spirit recollection consists in giving the force of memory a new direction, practice of spirit awareness is also concerned with an alteration of ordinary experience, with a vital alteration of our experience in the present. In ordinary consciousness, the present is experienced in such a way that the human soul is aware only of one bright point in the ever-flowing stream of time. The object of this second exercise is to become conscious not simply of the passing moment, but of the presence of the spiritual, and this reaches far beyond the bright point experienced as the fleeting moment. Therefore, the soul practicing spirit awareness must try to extend the bright point to an ever-growing sphere. The human soul must learn to face the cosmic present, must learn to say, "At this moment I stand within a world constellation. I belong to it with my whole being. My breathing and my heartbeat have as large a share in the structure of this constellation as the sun and planets. The harmony of the stars, the sun, my heart, my breathing, and my feeling produce the constellation of the moment. The tide of the cosmic hour flows through my breast as well as through the heavenly spaces." These and similar thoughts can give solemnity to the moment, we can then experience how our breast expands and our breathing is transformed. We breathe in time with the cosmos, and our soul expands in concentric circles of solemn tranquility. But these concentric waves do not beat upon emptiness. They encounter waves of still deeper solemnity flowing from the heart of the universe. And in this encounter, the human heart and the cosmic heart unite. Then the human soul may reflect. Every moment receives blessing from the heart of the world without our being aware of it. Thus we extend the feeling of our own soul being by the practice of spirit awareness, in balance of the soul, to realize our union with the eye of the world and the surging waves of cosmic evolution. Thereby we overcome the loneliness of life on earth. We no longer feel forsaken, for we know that in the widened horizon of the sun-filled meditative life, we may even now share in the blessing that flows from the heart of the world. Thus the human soul learns true feeling from the feeling of the cosmos. But from the cosmos of the human soul also learns true thinking, and this arises from the experience to which the practice of spirit beholding leads. For the practice of spirit beholding, described in the first half of the 3rd verse of the foundation stone, contains all the instruction the soul needs for learning to think truly, which is what the human soul must do in order to see into the future. For thinking is indeed the faculty that even in our everyday experience of time throws some degree of light onto the darkness of the future. And so it is also the faculty by means of which we may expect to attain certainty of vision, penetrating into the future. In order to attain this, as radical a change must be made in the force of thought as in the force of memory by the practice of spirit recollection, and in that of feeling by the practice of spirit awareness. We can understand this transformation of thinking that takes place in the practice of spirit beholding if we realize that in the normal state of consciousness, thinking is also like memory. Only it is a recollection that divines the possibilities of the future, whereas memory consists in honoring the facts of the past. When directed to the future, ordinary thinking likewise moves in a horizontal line, since it takes its start from the past, and from the past draws conclusions about the future. But it still remains for the most part uncertain, for even in endeavouring to draw a line from the past into the future, that is, to guess at the future on the basis of the highest probability, it still has the hypothetical character of conjecture. Now, hypothesis as such is neither a pure question addressed to the spiritual world, nor yet clear knowledge. It is therefore apt rather to place itself between the truth and human consciousness, concealing more than revealing the truth. For real knowledge of the truth, problems are necessary, that is to say, questions wherein the soul is sincerely ready for every answer. For real discovery of knowledge, the questions must not contain in themselves anything that detects the answer. As regards the content of the answer, the question must preserve a silence ready to meet whatever comes. Thought must be free of hypotheses if it is to lead to sure knowledge. It must therefore refrain from answering itself. It must be content with the role of stating the problem in mature and balanced manner, and then awaiting the answer in silence. It is precisely this silent waiting of the active thinking faculty for which the practice of spirit vision or spirit beholding strives. Just such a lull must be induced in the ordinary hypothesizing thought activity as takes place in the normal horizontal course of remembering, during the practice of spirit recollection. Here too, the aim is to alter the direction of the thinking faculty. In the practice of spirit beholding, the point is to change the thought direction from the horizontal of hypothesis to the vertical of vision, a change that consists in directing the thinking faculty upward. It is not directed upward, however, in the sense that one's own opinions are projected into the heavens, but in the sense of a calm, clear-seeing gaze. Scattered and restless thought activity must be collected and converged into a silent faculty of penetrating vision. When this happens, that is, when the calm gaze of the thinking faculty is directed upwards, a knowledge free of hypothesis is achieved. We have contributed nothing towards it from our subjective self. We no longer cogitate, we behold. As a flower that I see with my eyes is no creation of fancy, so what is seen in this stillness of thought is no hypothesis. It is no more dependent on the arbitrary human will than is the flower perceived by the eye. It is the cosmic thoughts seen by the human soul. When we transform our own thinking faculty into a calm seeing eye, we become aware of the thought power of the universe. And on the cosmic thoughts seen in this way, we can then model and orient our own. Thus the soul learns to think truly by learning from the thinking of the gods. For the future is the thinking of the gods. The flow of the future into the present and into the past is nothing else than the realizing of divine thoughts, of the eternal aims of gods. Whether in a pure and solid form, or in a caricatured or even antagonistic form, it is still the descent of divine thoughts into earthly reality. Whether the realization of the divine aims is pure or caricatured, or changed into its antithesis, depends on the free will of the human being, standing between good and evil. Yet the real content of it always originates in the thinking of the gods, quite irrespective of the use that free beings may make of it. The gods bestow the light of their cosmic thoughts upon free beings for their free will and choice. They give it in confidence that the sublime content of these thoughts will speak for itself, and that the beings upon whom they are bestowed will be worthy of them.